Roseanne Drake and Craig Tallman. Roseanne, okay, has a presentation from the foundation.
Thanks, David. Well, this is always a fun part of the job. You know, we work hard all year long to raise money, and now here we are. We're getting a chance to award it to a wonderful organization in our community, the Music of the Western Reserve. And we have Liz Hugh, a representative from that organization, here to accept her $500 check. So come on up, Liz. Here we go. Oh, there we are.
Yes, we are. Liz, congratulations.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, good. Thank you.
You wouldn't mind just saying a couple words?
Yes. First of all, I want to thank you all very much for year after year your support of music from the Western Reserve. It's really an entity in this community that is something that's vital to the life that we live here in terms of culture. And we've really, in this season, sort of become an organization that is presenting world-class musicians. This next one is Sunday. I invite you all to come to it. It's Nikita Mendoyas, who is the first place winner of the Cleveland International Piano Competition. And he's actually going to arrive tonight from Moscow and be in the community for about 5 days. The concert's at 5 o'clock Sunday. It's an hour concert. There's a reception afterwards to meet Nikita, a 27-year-old young man who's incredibly talented. In fact, there were 330 some people who applied to participate in the Cleveland International Piano Competition, and only 31 were chosen, and Nikita was #1 in that group. So this is not to be missed. It's sort of one of a kind concert, and it's his first appearance, and he's here in Hudson. His first appearance since he won the competition. The other concert I'd like to draw to your attention is in February. It's 5 members of the Cleveland Orchestra, and they have a bluegrass group, and it's just fun. So you might want to mark that on your calendars as well, February 12th. Thank you again for your support.
Come on, Greg. We're waiting for you.
I know we have a busy agenda today. I didn't want to hold things up. Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
You look beautiful, Greg.
Thank you. 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
This is one of those great, wonderful jewels that really makes Hudson. How many of you have been to one of the concerts at the Music of the Western Reserve? Great. It's really something very special. Liz, what's your year? How many years have you been doing? Not you, but the organization been in business.
34th season.
34 seasons.
Yes.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
I encourage all of you to go. It's really a wonderful
Christ Church?
Christ Church Episcopal, 5 o'clock Sunday. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Phil. I completely agree. It's just another wonderful element of a wonderful community. Thank you, Roseanne and Craig and the foundation for minding that grant request. And Lise, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate your attendance this morning, as well as all the work you do for the Music of the Western Reserve. Next up, I believe, yes, I think I see shoulder pads and all. It is fine day. Coach Sogan.
There's a lot of pressure on this job, so let me go through the ground rules once again. I have my lovely assistants here. Catherine's going to be on that side. Chris is over here collecting fines. Ground rules in regards to the birthday wishes. We have a ton of people that have birthdays. So what we ask you to do again is think about something that you might like to do with one of our members, or something very positive, and make a donation as you express your wish. And same thing with happy news. We're looking at positive things that are going on in Hudson and your life, and please make a small donation toward that. This week's Fine Day is going toward the hurricane boxes, as we are all aware of the devastation that was caused in Haiti and in our country. So the money will be going toward the purchase of those boxes that provide shelters, et cetera, for hurricane victims. We'll start off with our no pins, no badges. So if you do not have a pin on or a badge, please raise your hand, and our assistants will be collecting $1. Oh, to give you an example, too, Joe Vella is on vacation, and that was his happy news, and he donated $10 last week toward the toward Fine Day, so we'll be taking care of that donation. Recap the Stowe football game. As you probably are aware, these pins are built for speed, too, everybody. Great victory by the Hudson Explorers last Friday night. How many of you were in attendance? Raise your hands. Okay, keep them up there and put $1 in there, because none of you had your pins on for the game. Okay.
Stayed the whole game.
Well, we'll get somebody later on that little miscue. Oh, as a matter of fact, Craig Tallman, as I was walking toward the field, Craig was exiting the facility, so at halftime. So, Craig, where you at there, buddy? Oh, yeah, $2, pal. $2. You don't leave the game till it's over, especially with this one. What a comeback. It was a tale of 3 quarters. For 3 quarters, we pretty much couldn't do anything right. If you were there, one of the key plays early in the game, we intercepted a pass it was a punt return for a touchdown, and then we punted the ball, and the darn thing went 86 yards. 86 yards. I mean, he was almost punting from his end zone, punted all the way down to the 1-yard line. Stowe gets the ball. How many plays? 3 plays, they score a touchdown. I mean, it was like, whoa, you know, and they were a powerhouse. And then, again, we just couldn't do anything right for 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden, in the 4th quarter, things started to turn around. So hold on 1 second. Who was the receiver that caught the, what number, I guess? 4. Number 4. Do we know the young man's name? Greg Maley.
Oh, here it comes. Oh, my goodness.
I beg to differ. During my junior year in high school, I sustained a broken ankle and missed most of the season. So last week, I was able to tell Coach Golf I still had eligibility left. I had to kind of make, the jersey and stuff so I could go in, but I snuck in the 4th quarter. So if you look at today's hub, what looks like Greg Maley is really Ed Sogan. 2 touchdown catches and a 2-point conversion for number 4, and I'm taking all the credit for it. That's a breathe right strip. I was having trouble with my breathing during the game. Oh, at the end of the game, too, I forgot. Anybody hear the chant at the end of the game from our side to the Stowe side? And that's the guy that started it, too, right there. Brad Nelson, start your tractors. Very poor sportsmanship, Brad. And the worst part was that our own members thought that they were talking about them. So we got that with Rich Warfield was really excited because he's got several tractors at home. He thought it was a thing for him. Hudson Hub, we've got some nice things here that were in the hub, and we're going to start off with Constitution Week with our president. And Constitution Week, he's making a presentation to the Daughters of the American Revolution. $2, David. There was no pin on that particular There was a pin, but it was a Hudson pin. As always, Rich Warfield is prominently displayed in a lot of advertisements, et cetera, but he is in the hub picking the pro football picks one of the weeks there with his candid shot. It's the same picture. That was his high school picture that he uses. What he doesn't tell you is that I think there are 14 games, and you were 0 for 14. So pay a buck over there. And coming back again with that is his ad, another $1. Okay, no pin in that one. Ron Strobel, HCR Golf League. He's one of the outstanding golfers in that. So is Ron still here? Yep. Where's he hiding? Oh, he's took another, trying to get away from me. $1 over there. Hudson Community Foundation issues a grant for the Family Fun Night, which we really appreciated, to help support that event for young families. It was held at the middle school, and Bill Woldridge and I are accepting a check. I will give you my donation, but Bill, $1 for that, and also for those shorts, another $1. Those are the worst looking shorts I've ever seen. A couple other things that happened that I don't particularly have a picture for, but Ron Strobel was putting up another heritage sign. I think he puts it up on every house in Hudson, but he was prominently displayed doing that, so it's $1 for that, for not having a pin. Lori and Dan Williams had a picture with the Westminster Titan. And with his smile and his teeth, he was really happy to take a picture with you because you're a big-time donor, Westminster. $2 for that because he's one of the primo guys from Westminster College. Phil Herman.
You found that on Facebook.
Yes, I did. Well, Gail found that. Thank you, Gail. She's my researcher. Phil Herman with a great presentation. Was it last week with no sound? Good job there. $2 for not previewing that. Holy mackerel. Ron, David, Mike, you guys in the back, I was walking past there, and I heard one of these quotes, so you guys take out $1, but the quote from one of those guys in that back table said, if I had $1 for every girl that found me unattractive, they'd eventually find me attractive. So, David, Ron, you guys all give $1. Evan, that includes you, buddy. Take out $1. Okay, Phil Warburton, where are you at, Phil? Unbelievable 3-minute Rotarian. He tried, but he couldn't beat our record from Hal Desasor of 12 minutes, but Phil went 9.5 minutes for the 3-minute Rotarian. Let's have a nice round of applause. But you did come up short $2 there, Phil. For a while, I thought he was the keynote speaker. Jeez Louise, holy cow. Okay, bad girls table. Again, you guys, I don't know who says it, but every week they come up with some nasty remark in regards to the males. Here's our quote from today. Behind every great man is a woman rolling her eyes. Very, very, very sad. The bad boys table. Take out $1 over here. Today's quote, again, just walking by, and here's what one of the guys said this. I may not be that funny, good looking, or smart, or talented. I forgot where I was going with this. Okay, $1 for each one of those guys over there. Okay, this is, I didn't get a name on this one, but this is one of our Rotarians had phoned his doctor. And the conversation went this way. Our Rotarian, is it true? He wanted to know that the medication you prescribed has to be taken for the rest of my life. The doctor on the other end said, yes, I'm afraid so. There was a moment of silence before our Rotarian replied, I'm wondering then, how serious is my condition? Because the prescription is marked no refills. Okay, we've got whose quote is it? Again, we're dividing out. Logan, your side's this way. You don't have to pay a fine. And then we've got this side over here. If you get the correct author of the quote, they pay. If you don't get it, you pay $1. Here's the quote. Get your facts first, and then you can distort them as you please.
Phil Herman.
Phil Herman. Bap. Okay, $1 for each one of these people on this side. It was Mark Twain. Okay, get those bucks up there, wave them around. This side over here. This kind of refers to our Rotarian group here. I refuse to join any club that would have me as a member. Outstanding! Groucho Marx. Good job. Get another $1 out over here. Unbelievable. They're getting tagged. Okay, we've got birthday wishes. Okay, for your birthday wish, once again, you can, we'll have you stand a little bit, but we do have several. So Craig Tallman, your birthday was on the 3rd. Any birthday wish, please?
Goodwill to all men.
Oh, there we go. That should be a fun right there. Okay, Liz Ramsey, happy BD, on the 5th, right? A birthday wish.
Donation to wells, water wells.
Okay, come up with a donation then, so we can do that. All right. James Field is not here. His birthday was on the 24th. We'll catch him next time. Roseanne Drake, the 25th, correct?
Yes. My wish is that the gala breaks all kinds of records this year.
Okay. And Bill Woldridge, who's always famous for his shorts, but he wore long pants today, on the 27th. William.
Okay, my granddaughter gets into the college of her choice with a big scholarship.
I think it's from the Woldridge Scholarship Fund, right? Okay, anniversaries. Jim Young, 25 years. Holy mackerel. Pick up a buck or two from that lad over there. Ron Barnhouse, 4 years. Back in the back. Congratulations. Phil Herman, 3 years. Mimi Becker, a year. And, oh, I forgot, we got to sing happy birthday. So everybody, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Oh, I think our songmeister's in trouble. I'm going to take his job. All right, happy news. Here's how it works. Oh, and we do have a prize today. A dozen farm fresh eggs from the Barker Acres, okay? These chickens, she had them working hard last night, and she picked up the eggs this morning. These babies are still warm. Okay, happy news. Oh, nobody wants the eggs. Come on. Anybody have happy news? We have a little donation. There we go. Allison.
I was supposed to go to Cayman Islands last week with my daughter and my sister, and thanks to Matthew. You're here.
Very good.
That's the best I could do.
Okay, everybody pays a little bit for the happy news, and then we'll have a vote to see who wins.
For those football players, other than Cleveland Brown, or football team fans, Minnesota Vikings are 5-0.
Oh, that's really something. Oh, golly. Oh, geez, that's unhappy news. That's very sad. Anybody else?
My daughter got married in Boston this weekend, last weekend.
Fantastic. Anything else?
Tribe.
Yes.
So the middle school girls team just finished their season, and they're undefeated. They ran against like 90-something other schools, and they're undefeated.
Coached by cross-country coach Leo Doty, too, right?
He's awesome.
He's outstanding. Okay. All right, so we have, I think it'll be between cross-country and the wedding. Let's have a round of applause for the wedding in Boston. Sorry, Rich, no Minnesota. And for our cross-country team. Well, I think we'll split a half a dozen eggs. Here, we'll give them to George. Okay, all right, that's right. Christina has chickens now. All right, last story. This is, and unfortunately Joe Boisel isn't here, but this is a story about his past. As many of you know, when he was a very young minister in the 80s, he was the chaplain for the Chicago Bears. Mike Ditka's team. So here's a little story about that. As Joe tells it, Mike Ditka was about to deliver a locker room pep talk, and he looked up and he saw his defensive tackle, William Refrigerator Perry. How many remember the fridge? Okay, I won't find you $1 for remembering the fridge. He was a rather large lad who had a very good career in regards to defensive player, and also was a fullback once in a while. So the fridge stood out, even a crowd of football players because of his size. Dick could just gesture to the fridge, "When I get finished, I'd like you to close with the Lord's Prayer." And then the coach began his talk. Meanwhile, Jim McMahon, who was the quarterback at the time, was kind of a wild man, and he punched Joe and said, "Look at Perry. He doesn't know the Lord's Prayer." Sure enough, Perry sat with a look of panic on his face, his head in his hands, and he was sweating profusely. Joe says, "Everybody knows the Lord's Prayer." After a few minutes of watching the refrigerator leaking several gallons of sweat, McMahon nudged Joe again and said, "I'll bet you $50 fridge doesn't know the Lord's Prayer." Joe tells a story. He stops and reflects on the absurdity of it all. Here we are sitting in a prayer moment and betting $50 on the Lord's Prayer. When Coach Ditka finishes his pep talk, he asked the men to remove their caps, and he nodded at Perry and bowed his head. It was quiet for a few minutes before Fridge spoke in a shaky voice. "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep." Joe felt a tap on his shoulder. Here was Jim McMahon. "Here's the $50. I had no idea Perry knew the Lord's Prayer." Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. As always, a most entertaining fine day, although it does get a little expensive from time to time. Ron, you wanted 30 seconds or so to talk about the gala.
Yep. Believe it or not, it's time to start thinking about the gala. As a matter of fact, the committee, part of the committee, already has had one meeting. We have another meeting this Friday, and I'm really happy to say that we've got some volunteers from some of the new members to work on the committee, and we're excited about that, having you there. We've got a meeting this Friday, 12 o'clock at the Baldwin House, and if anyone who's not on the committee is interested in coming to see what we do or to volunteer, you're welcome to show up and just see what goes on. We do have 2 presentations of potential beneficiaries this year, and they'll both be presenting on Friday, so you may want to come and hear that as well. So anyway, if anyone's interested in joining us, you're certainly welcome to do that. And we are well on our way already. So, and it's May something.
19th.
May 19th, 2017. So get it on your calendar.
Thanks, Ron. Again, early warning, May 19th. Everybody put it on your calendar and start lining up folks that you think are going to be interested in tickets and let them know so they can get it on their calendar as well. There are some items on the tables. Mimi Becker, League of Women Voters cards that explains early voting, absentee voting. Please feel free to take one of those. They lay out all of the rules and the timelines and everything else. So for anyone who might be interested, or if you know someone who might be interested or want to vote absentee, it's important information. This morning, we are privileged to have with us 2 candidates for the Ohio House of Representatives from District 37 here in Ohio, Christina Rogner and Casey Weinstein. The order in which they will be addressing us was determined by the luck of a draw of numbers. They will each have 6 minutes to introduce themselves and explain the issues that they deem important for Ohio and District 37. Following the second of the speakers, there will be an opportunity for questions and answers. So it's my privilege to introduce first Casey Weinstein. Casey is seeking the 37th Ohio House District seat. He was elected as Ward 2 member of Hudson City Council in 2015. Casey is a member of the 2014 Leadership Hudson class, where he led the class project to power Barlow Community Center with solar energy. Councilman Weinstein is a client executive for Gartner, responsible for sales, marketing, and business development activities with the U.S. Air Force and nuclear enterprise. He is a 2004 graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy and served in active duty as Deputy Chief of Information Assurance at Los Angeles Air Force Base and as officer in charge of maintenance support at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He received his MBA from the Ohio State University Fisher College of Business. Casey lives in Hudson with his wife Amanda and their daughter. Please join me in welcoming Casey Weinstein.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mayor, very much for the introduction. And thank you all for having me here this morning. I truly appreciate, the longer I live in Hudson, seeing so many friendly faces and understanding what you all do for the community, the organizations you support, the activities you're involved in, and it just, it means a lot to me. With a growing family and the things that we're enabled to do in this town, you help make it a wonderful place to live. So thank you very much. So the first thing I thought I would do is tell you just a very little bit about myself. I think most of you know me to some extent, and then talk a little bit about the issues that we've brought up in the campaign. The first thing you should know about me is I like a challenge. Today is Yom Kippur. For those of you who don't know, this is the Jewish New Year, and it's the only day that Jews have to fast over the course of a year. So, of course, I'm starting my day with this wonderful buffet here and all these wonderful smells and aromas, and I'm trying to, be strong, keep strong willpower here. But I think it's going okay. So, just for a very brief background, the mayor already kind of gave you a good introduction of where I'm coming from, but my job is really what I want to focus on, and that is to help make the government run more efficiently and effectively. So for the last 5 years, working with the U.S. Air Force and with the nuclear enterprise, that's been my day in and day out responsibility. Obviously, billion-dollar budgets, huge responsibility, cybersecurity, nuclear mission, and there's a lot of inefficiency in government. And what my company does is help organizations root that out and operate most effectively for taxpayer dollars. So that kind of led into my interest in that, and my family's military background led my interest in getting involved in service. So really honored to serve on City Council and to see my fellow councilman and the mayor here today. So talking a little bit about the issues that we've discussed in the campaign. The first is investment in local government. And this will be no surprise to most of you in the room. This has been a struggle for local communities. When you look at the state budget, it's been balanced on the backs, unfortunately, of local communities. And now those communities are having to make decisions based on budget shortfalls, hard decisions on how to make up revenue in a lot of cases. So this is happening throughout our district. It's happening in Cleveland. And what we're talking about in terms of economic development is the core foundational baseline that you need in a community to grow. We're talking about the roads, we're talking about water infrastructure, we're talking about some of the services that attract small businesses and ultimately that attract residents. I can speak for myself and Amanda. When we decided on a community to live, we loved the connectivity in Hudson, that we saw that was a commitment for the community. We loved seeing the newly paved road, 303, had just been paved, and we live right off 303 in Village West. So that was great to see. We loved seeing First and Main. We loved seeing the development and growth in the community. That kind of infrastructure is a priority for people. So in terms of how we need to grow and how we need to attract people and small business and broaden our tax base, that investment in local community is incredibly important. And that's about priorities, and that would be a priority of mine if elected and sent down to Columbus, is restoring those local decisions in terms of where to invest those dollars. The second issue we've been talking a lot about is charter schools, and this has failed us in two ways. We've spent $1 billion a year on charter schools, largely almost completely unaccountable charter schools. I think most of us have heard the quote about Ohio being singled out as the Wild West in terms of charters. We gave them money and just let them go. And now we've seen that 80% of those schools are failing. So that's failed taxpayers, and that's failed our students. And it comes back to the economy. If we want a strong, dynamic economy in Ohio, we have to build an educated workforce. As I go around the community, that's one of the most important things I hear from small business owners is they need access to an educated workforce. Nothing we can do is as important as preparing that next generation for the demands of the workforce, the increasingly dynamic and flexible demands. So that's important to rein in charter schools, to hold them to the same standards as public schools while still giving them some flexibility to do specific curriculum and a little more flexibility in that regard. So that's another priority of mine, is taking that regulation and oversight to the next level for those charter schools that have proven to be ineffective and a waste of dollars and educational years. Then the final topic we've been talking a lot about comes back to the economy as well, and that's renewable energy. So the mayor referenced my project at Barlow Community Center, which I'm really proud of. I hope that would send kind of an example to the community about what's coming. And this is a $280 billion industry, solar, wind, geothermal. It's an incredibly dynamic industry that, unfortunately, right now, because we've frozen our RPS and because we've got restrictions on wind power that make it impossible to site an economically viable project in Ohio, we see investment flowing to other states. So I have a few stats that I wanted to share with you. This is a case study done by the National Renewable Energy Lab. A typical wind power project generates $126.7 million in economic activity, $4.3 million in property tax revenue for the local government, $600,000 in annual lease payments to landowners, $167,000 in sales tax revenue, and 100 construction jobs. I'd like to see that industry grow here in Ohio, and I'd like to see the government, I agree with Governor Kasich here wholeheartedly, I'd like to see that industry grow and government get out of the way and let us take full advantage of it in Ohio. So my time's up. Thank you so much again for having me here. I'm very honored to be here, and I look forward to answering any questions you have.
Thank you, Casey. Next, it's my privilege to introduce Christina Rogner. Christina is the current state representative from Ohio House District 37, which includes Hudson. She was elected state representative in 2010 and re-elected in 2012 and 2014. Prior to her election to the Ohio House of Representatives, Representative Rogner was elected as an at-large member of Hudson City Council in 2005 and was re-elected to that position in 2009. Prior to her service in elected office, Christina worked in the private sector as an engineer for Westinghouse Power Generation, as a management consultant for McKinsey & Company, and as a small business owner. Christina received her Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Tufts University and her MBA from the Wharton School. She and her husband Eric are 14-year residents of Hudson and are the parents of 3 daughters. It's my privilege to introduce Christina Rogner.
Thank you and good morning. It is wonderful to be here today with you. I am Christina Rogner and I am your state representative. Mayor Basil, thank you for that lovely introduction. I love Hudson. My husband and I, as he mentioned, have been here for 14 years. We've raised 3 daughters here, and our lives are inextricably just woven into the fabric of Hudson. He mentioned I was on Hudson City Council for 5 years, and I have been your state rep since 2011. But also, I was part of the Leadership Hudson class that brought you the farmers market. Several members in the community and I started this Picture Hudson book. We donate the 100% of the proceeds to charitable organizations within Hudson. It has been a privilege to serve each and every one of you over the last decade. This morning, let me share with you my philosophy on government and some of our accomplishments, and then take a quick look at the campaign. Most of you here know me, but for those that might be tuning in today, I'm the Republican in this race. I'm a conservative, And in terms of philosophy, with respect to the economy, I believe that government does not create the jobs. It's the private sector that creates the jobs that really grow our economy. But what government can do is set the stage that's inviting to business. And what does that mean? That means a tax climate that's low, that makes sense, a regulatory environment that is a common sense regulatory environment, an educated workforce, as well as low cost and reliable energy and more. So that's the environment. You make that, the jobs will come. I was elected in November of 2010 for the first time, and we got right to work. We were facing an $8 billion budget shortfall. We were able to balance that budget. We did not raise taxes. And speaking of taxes, since then, we've reduced the burden by $4.8 billion in Ohio taxpayers. We eliminated Ohio's estate tax. Just this last GA, we've reduced income taxes across the board. So all tax brackets have seen a reduction of 6.3%. The top tax rate in Ohio now is below 5%. It's 4.99%. That's the lowest it's been since 1982, almost 35 years ago. With respect to businesses, the first $250,000 of income for a business now, you have a 100% tax deduction, and there's a 3% flat tax after that. So we've done a lot in terms of bringing the tax climate into line. Common sense regulatory reform. That was something that I led in 2011 with the Common Sense Initiative. It was a bill I authored back then to restore sort of the balance with these regulations and bureaucratic red tape. And we've been slowly unwinding that ball. And it's been really fun, actually, to work with businesses along the way to do that. What have the results been? They've been nothing short of, quite frankly, astounding. If you remember back in 2010, unemployment in Ohio was around 9.1%. Today it's hovering around 4.7%. That's a tremendous improvement, and it's a result of 455,000 jobs being created in the private sector. CEO magazine ranks the states. It has just come out with its latest edition, ranking Ohio 10th out of the 50 states, which is very good. It's an improvement for Ohio by 12 ranks. We moved up 12 spots. The rainy day fund, when we were first elected, had 89 cents in it. Now it's over $2 billion. We've restored financial stability to the state, and as a result, our credit has been upgraded. It's really been great metrics. Specifically to this current GA, I was in front of you guys back this spring, and so we really did a deep dive into a lot of the work that we've been doing this General Assembly. But specifically, I would like to highlight House Bill 2. That was a bill that I worked on to charter school reform. It was a landmark charter school reform bill in the state of Ohio, and it's received accolades from across the state. I've also worked on a school door barricade. It's a school safety bill, seal of biliteracy, and most recently a bill I've introduced that would return any misused charter school funds to the local school districts. Speaking of schools, I've enjoyed working closely with our superintendent here, Phil Herman, and many of the other superintendents across the district on issues that are important to them, such as school funding. We worked hard to get the TPP funding back into the budget. And why do I do this? Because education, as I mentioned, is an educated workforce is one of the components that's an environment that's inviting to business, and we all benefit if our students are educated. And I do believe in providing a quality education for all of our Buckeye students. In terms of the election, I am just very proud to have been elected by you guys over the last 3 elections. I'm also endorsed by many of the organizations and leaders across the state, including the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, the NFIB, the Ohio Restaurant Association, the Chiropractic Association. I could go on, the list is long, but I'm going to pause. I say I am actually very pro-life. I am endorsed by Ohio Right to Life and Ohio Pro-Life Action. But most recently, the one thing that's got me very excited is it's on your table, is I've been endorsed by the Akron Beacon Journal. Generally a pretty liberal newspaper, and I'm a conservative, but they did endorse me this time, and there's a part that's highlighted in there I'd like to read, which is the Hudson Republican delivered for the 37th District and the rest of the state when she pushed her party hard to bring much improved oversight and accountability to the dismal charter school industry. With that in mind, we recommend the re-election of Christina Rogner on November 8th. It has been an honor to serve you. It truly has been a privilege. And we have accomplished a lot together, and I thank you for that opportunity and look forward to 2 more years in serving in that capacity. I'd like you always to remember our state motto, with God, all things are possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Casey, if you could come up. We now have an opportunity for questions. Answers could be kept to roughly about 2 minutes. We can get in the maximum number of questions. So, first question.
Thank you both for your service to our community. Appreciate that very much. I'm interested from each of you in what your opinion is of Donald Trump and his campaign.
How did I know that question was coming? I get that a lot. So, you know, with respect to some of the things Donald Trump has said recently, you know, there really is no excuse for some of his comments and certainly his behavior. But with respect to some of the things Hillary Clinton has done, that's also inexcusable. Let me just say, first of all, I am focused on my race. I'm a state representative. I am proud of our positive track record, and I am trying to keep a very, very positive message and positive story going because I believe we have a lot of good news to share. A lot of great things have been happening in Ohio. So I want to stay focused on that, number one. Number two, you know, as a candidate, and I would actually like to thank Casey for putting himself out there. I know as a candidate, you know, you put yourself under a microscope to be examined and cross-examined and, you know, you laid out. And it's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice you take away from your family. And so I want to thank all the candidates that are out there. Yeah, so anyway, so I'll just wrap up by saying I'm running a very positive campaign. I am focused on state rep. I believe we have a very educated electorate here. You guys are so smart. You do your homework. You research the issues. You look into the candidates. You look into Donald Trump. You look into Hillary Clinton. You look into us. And you guys will make your own mind up in terms of, you know, who you want to be your next state rep, who you want to be your next president. So thank you.
Thanks, Christina. So, I guess I would answer, I mean, I think the statements about women speak for themselves over the last week or so, well, over the last 70 years or so. And I just think it's completely unacceptable, and I'm not afraid, or it's no secret I won't be voting for Donald Trump. But I want to give you a little bit of perspective from the military side. I'm not active duty anymore, but most of my very close friends from the Air Force Academy are. And today I work very closely with STRATCOM at Offutt Air Force Base, which has responsibility for our nuclear enterprise. And they are scared. I'm telling my conservative friends, very conservative friends, which I went to a very conservative school, they're worried and scared. And I've had friends who've sat in the silos where the buttons get pushed, and they truly are terrified at the thought of a Trump presidency. So don't take my word for it. Take it from the Department of Defense. I don't think the guy has the temperament to be our commander-in-chief. So that's all I'd say about that.
To either one of you that would have the answer to this question, being a local...
Where's the microphone? Oh, there you are. Okay.
Rich Warfield. Oh, stand up.
This voice is coming from somewhere.
I'm throwing my voice, Christina. It's over
okay,
there.
Thank you. Where's this voice?
He is speaking from above.
Thank you.
Being a local CPA here in Hudson, great community, great business community. Where do you see? You mentioned that $250,000 back out, which pertains to S-corps, partnerships, and Schedule C type entities. Where do you see that going in 2017 and in the future? Has there been any direction? Because the year before 16, it was 75%. The year before that was 50%. Is it going to stay at 100? Is my question.
Thank you, Rich, for the question. It is the Ohio Revised Code, so you're right. So these things do change all the time. In terms of what I'm seeing, it will stay there. Given the current makeup of the General Assembly and the executive branch right now, what I'm hearing, it would stay. If if the makeup changes, then I mean, certainly there's no guarantee. I would like to say, though, that I also have been endorsed by the Ohio Society of CPAs. Thank you.
In Hudson and Hudson City Schools, our last operating levy was in 2011, and according to Catherine Stein's latest 5-year forecast, it looks like we would be on a path to hopefully 2021 or beyond before we would need to ask our community for additional support. And so we're doing everything in our power to try and push that need for operating dollars as far as possible. But whenever I mention that 5-year forecast, Catherine always reminds me to say, God willing, and the creek don't rise. And in our case, the creek rising is really our state funding. That's the biggest threat to our operating dollars, is losing state funding. And so what would be your approach? Well, I appreciate that the state rainy day fund is over $2 billion. I think that's a fantastic thing for our state. But it feels like sometimes in public school or in public funding that the state funds are being accumulated on the backs of the local taxpayers, because funds that used to flow locally, like TPP, are being replaced with CAT tax that's now flowing to the state. So what would be your approach to help ensure that local funding continues to flow to local communities so that we don't have to then turn around and ask our taxpayers earlier for funding?
Thank you, Phil. And congratulations on your tremendous fiscal management. I think that's great. And I have really enjoyed working directly with you and with Catherine through these budget cycles, but particularly this last budget cycle, when the budget was given to us from the executive branch. It basically had eliminated TPP, that's tangible personal property tax. And that was a significant hit, not only for the Hudson schools, but for several of the schools across my district and across the state, to the tune of millions of dollars. So we worked together hand in hand with Phil and Catherine, and we crafted an amendment to this last budget, basically that would restore the TPP funding. We were able to get it in successfully in the House. The Senate passed it as well. The governor line item vetoed the second year, 2017, but then we were able to come back in a subsequent Senate bill and restore that funding. So basically, I'm telling you that story because, to me, proper funding of education is critically important. And I've been working with you guys. I will continue to work with you guys, and I will stay committed to make sure that the schools get the funding we need. My daughter is in the Hudson High School. We love it. I have an 8th grader who was in a focus group just yesterday talking about the new buildings. Caitlin, she's on the cross-country team too, by the way, and we and we love it. So yeah, I think I will work hand in hand with you, as I have, to continue to ensure that our schools remain properly funded.
Thanks for that question, Phil. I think what we've seen over the past decade or so in the state is it feels like a charter schools first kind of approach. And that's where the focus has been, and that's where a lot of funding has gone. And that has come partially at the expense of our public schools. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, one thing I would do is be a public schools first kind of representative. I'm a product of public schools. My wife is a product of public schools. Our daughter will go through public schools. So I think that's a critical piece of it, is the funding that's attached to the students, which keep enrollment strong and keep funding strong and flowing to local school districts. And I think one other thing that's important to note is this isn't spending, it's investing. It truly is, and it's the most important kind of investing we could do in I think Christine and I both agree on this, in education. So that's an emphasis that I think really has to be made, and I come from a marketing and sales background, and that's a way that I think it needs to be kind of sold to taxpayers, is this is an investment that we really need, that is actuarially sound and will result in positive growth for our economy and for our future for the state.
Ohio has a long history of being somewhat of a dinosaur in energy policy. we are still under the gun for contaminating the entire Northeast and Canada with fallout from our coal-fired plants. So my question is, what do you think should be the role of the Ohio legislature in providing incentives and positive direction for us to make the transition to renewable energy alternatives?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much for that question. So besides the clean air, I'm a big proponent of renewable energy. When you look at the industry, we had an RPS that was put into place, a renewable energy production standard, in 2008. From the year 2008 to the end of 2013, we had $1.3 billion of investment in our state in renewable energy. Then in 2014, we froze that standard. And since then, we've had $40 million of investment in this state. I think the numbers speak for themselves. And as a city councilman now, I've learned from my fellow councilmen how important that local revenue is for local governments. It's a huge economic boon. And I think, to answer your question, government's responsibility is to get the heck out of the way right now. This industry is growing hugely. It's a $280 billion industry. And again, I got to agree with Governor Kasich that the RPS should be reinstated. We are the only state in the U.S. that froze our RPS. And I think that's a real shame. The other piece is with regard to wind setbacks. I mentioned this earlier, but I've got to reemphasize, they are so restrictive, you cannot economically viably set a wind project in this state today. So Facebook was going to build a $550 million data center in Columbus in 2015. I don't know if any of you are aware of this. They were considering Columbus or Fort Worth, Texas. And they ended up moving they chose Fort Worth, Texas. And the main public reason they gave was access to wind power. So we're actually also talking about private dollars, private businesses, Amazon, Facebook, Google. These businesses want to power their data centers with renewable energy. They have a price on carbon internally for their companies, so they're incentivized to do it. We've got to get the heck out of the way and let this energy industry grow. So that's my take on it, and that would be a major priority for me in Columbus. Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of energy, I believe diversity does make sense. Just like it does in your financial portfolio, diversity is a good idea. However, I disagree with government mandating it. Things will progress. The people will want certain things. Businesses will want them. Things will happen on their own. The government never mandated that we have to switch from the horse and buggy to the car. It'll happen on its own. There was an article in the Plain Dealer just about a month ago. It was by John Funk, and it's titled, "The Ohio Solar Power Has Moved from Cottage Industry to Growth Industry." And if I could, I'd like to read just a bit of it. It says, "The solar energy systems are proliferating across Ohio, growing by more than 23% in just the past year." This is while that freeze has been in place. The growth has come despite a law passed by Ohio lawmakers last year freezing state mandates for 2 years that since 2009 had required power companies to annually increase the percentage of solar and wind generated power that they sold. And significantly, most of Ohio's almost 2,000 solar systems registered with the state regulators as of May 30th were not small and not on residential rooftops, the analysis done by Green Energy Ohio has found. So I guess the message is wind power, solar power, geothermal, it's all good. Diversity is good. We need natural gas. We need some coal. I mean, I think it's wise for our country to have a diversity. And what I'm hearing, what I'm reading is it's starting to happen on its own, and that is so much better, I believe, than government mandating it. Certainly, I don't believe in the mandates. I could support some instead of a stick, let's use a carrot if we need to, but I think it'll happen on its own. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Weinstein and Representative Rogner. We certainly do appreciate your time this morning and sharing your thoughts and perspectives with us. I'd like to thank our greeters today, Jay Yard and Gail Royster, as well as Pete Opperman. Pete Opperman was greeting this morning as well. The audiovisual crew, Tom Page, Tom Tobin, Den Rich, and Ron Barnhouse. And thank you to Logan Ritter from Hudson's Service Learning Class for helping this morning as well. Next up is the drawing for the Rotabuck. Payout is $12. My goodness, nobody has won for a while. The jackpot is $569. Lisa, if you would do the honors. I didn't want to jeopardize either candidate by pulling the wrong ticket. Last four, 2807. Oh!
Well, you know, I'll give that back to today's fine day. Thank you.
Chris has donated the drawing for today back to the Fine Day proceeds. Thank you, Chris. And as we close up the meeting today, as usual, I'd like to leave you with a thought. It's a thought that's been attributed to a world leader who recently passed away in the past month. One of the articles I was reading, he was quoted as saying, "You are only as great as the cause you serve." And when I read that, I immediately thought of the Rotary motto, service above self. Shimon Peres. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. And there is a board meeting afterward.